Qual è la vostra posizione sulla questione palestinese? Da ex volontario dell'Esercito Repubblicano Irlandese, le chiedo se ci sono delle similitudini tra la lotta portata avanti da Hamas e dal popolo palestinese e quella dell'IRA in Irlanda.
I've been at a number of conflict areas, not including Palestine, but I have spoken to conflict areas, and I always say, look, I am not here to tell you what the solution is. All I can tell you about is what happened in Ireland and what worked for us and what didn't work for us. And I'm not being modest, it's just true. I don't have the knowledge, the in-depth knowledge of those circumstances to be able to say to you, here's the steps you must take. I can tell you what we did. If it is and we spoke to governments and non-government in conflicts. We were in conflict, and I said, if it is of benefit to you, then it's been a good day's work for me. Or I'm glad I came and that. And if it isn't, there's nothing lost here. But to go back to the Palestinian, I do have an opinion on the Palestinian. And it is, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but it has become very simplified. That whatever Hamas done, and that's why I don't agree with what happened on October the 7th. However, I am also aware that what was happening in Palestine goes back some 77, and Nakba come back from, I think it's 77 years, certainly very much over 70. And what is happening now, I think for any, I hate the word right-thinking people, but any person who's not right-thinking but who has a brain must see that this is genocide. Whatever the proportions of it, the Jewish population went through this in their history. They went through it. The Holocaust was huge, right? And I'm not sitting here trying to even say the same thing, because but this is genocide, because Netanyahu wants to wipe out or put them out of their land, or both. There's actually doing both, I think. The British spent an awful lot of money trying to criminalise our struggle and trying to make out what a political struggle was just criminal activity, and they spent billions, especially in America. And I've always said, though, speaking to people, look, so they spent all this money, but what they couldn't do in the hunger strike was they couldn't answer the simple question which many people were asking, people who were not political, people who were political. If this was criminality, how can that criminal be prepared to starve himself? And in this case, it was 10 people. To starve themselves to death for an ideal that was criminal. Surely you must ask the question, was it not just? Did they not have a reason? And I think that question, on a bigger scale, is what's happening now. And it's a simple question to governments, who are, complicit. They're still sending weapons over. They're watching those weapons being used to kill innocent people. And it's, 20,000, over 20,000 children. There's been over, I think at the last count, over 53,000. And we're hearing it every day. And even when there was a cessation called, a ceasefire called, it was still happening. So I know I'm not trying to simplify this, but in the end, there are simple aspects that I think is unavoidable to deal with as a human being, is to not realize that what is happening there is not just unjust. And now, of course, they're starving people. I mean, the statistics that come out now are babies dying of starvation on an ongoing basis. So that's where I stand, absolutely. I mean, I believe that there should be a resolution, as there always needs to be, but the Palestinians can't be put out of it. It wasn't the Arabian countries, or it wasn't Palestinians or that who created the Holocaust. It was Europeans, And now we have, Europeans who are not standing. What was the argument at the time? If you let this happen, you're as guilty. I'm not trying to give everybody a guilt complex, but I'd say this, that if you're a human being, I don't care what your religion is, or if you have a religion, don't have a religion, what is happening in Palestine is genocide, and genocide from either a moral, religious, political, or any other, or a human side is wrong. And it needs to stop.